like LARPs as a white supremacist, but he told me he fell in love with an Indian woman, so that's why I use it to make fun of him.
Oh, dude, same. I'm super racist, but I love my Indian woman.
Good shit.
Anyways,
chill.
Synleth'S.
Yeah, Shinra got a slam, bro. Shinra got a slam.
Yeah, bro. I got punched on.
So. I'm totally fine if I lose this debate. I just need the clarity because I don't think I lost the last one.
Sure, man. So your view on personal identity is a functionalist view, yes?
It's my own version of a functionalist view, yeah. So if you try to like project one of the other functionalist views on me, it might not.
Yeah, and to be clear, if the persistence conditions is just you are maintaining the same function over time.
My persistence condition is it is functional by definition, but we also have to agree on what the function is because I take it to be causal in nature.
When you say it's causal in nature, what does that mean?
Hold on 1 second. My coffee's like spilling over. 1 second. Causal in nature. I mean, the function that I associate with personhood has to do with. Well, remember my last conversation with you about character, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's just, if you don't mind, I'm just going to start from the beginning.
Sure, that's fine.
Because I don't know if Hyde and this is my first time meeting either of you actually. But if you guys are like here as judges or witnesses, then let me kind of lay out my position in its entirety. So last time Shinra and I talked, you did not have an account of personhood that you fight over, so you accepted mine, right?
I think so. I can't remember specifically.
I have a pretty standard account of what a person is. I define person as a moral participant.
Sure, that's fine.
So taken as an entity that is the bearer of moral rights and duties.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I make a distinction. I'll just give you like a syllogism where I'll just argue that personhood requires you to be an agent, like non-agents cannot be persons. And so the syllogism is basically going to be if personhood and moral status applies to non-agents, then that means that we would extend rights to inanimate objects or animated non-agents such as plants. And then the second premise is that we do not extend rights to inanimate objects and non-agents. And so the conclusion is personhood does not apply to non-agents.
Yeah, that's just a bit of an overgeneralization. Well, I said the conclusion, but I just disagree with the premises. So I don't think that, for example, if I were to say that rights apply to non-agents, that would also mean I need to include things like plants and like animate but non-sentient objects, because I could just grant that some inanimate or some like non-agents have properties which are morally valuable, right? And also which are morally valuable that other non-agent property or non-agent entities do not have. So for example, like you could just circle this back to like an average abortion debate. A fetus is not like an agent in the sense that it doesn't have like a mind, but trivially you can say that there's a relevant distinction between a fetus and like a plant. So like I
understand what you're saying, but I think we're having a semantic dispute here because look, I agree with you that objects can have moral consideration, but I disagree with you that objects can be persons.
So wait, hold on, but you said that like they need to have some form of moral obligation towards them, and I just take it to be the case that even in some weak sense, anything which does have moral consideration, we do have some weak form of obligation towards it. So, like for example, if there's moral consideration I have towards dogs, I think I'm obligated not to kill them.
You think we have moral obligations to objects?
Moral obligations, maybe we can have moral obligations in some like relational sense. Some objects may have some relation to some agent, therefore I have an obligation not to interfere with this object. Like I have an obligation not to like break any crutches that some disabled guy has.
Yeah, but you agree with me that your moral obligation in the scenario you just provided is to the agent, not to the object.
When I say you have an obligation, I mean that there are certain sort of things which you should or should not do to this thing, right? And in this sort of context, there are certain things which you should not do to this to certain objects by virtue of its relations to other entities. So saying that just because it isn't an agent, I would have no obligations to it, would also just be saying that since again the crutches that this disabled person has is not an agent, then I do not have any sort of obligations not to break it, right? Which is just obviously false. So
okay, let me reread my syllogism, and you see if you still have a problem with it, because I think we're having a semantic dispute. So my syllogism is, if personhood applies to non-agents, then we extend rights to inanimate objects or non-agents, animated objects such as plants.
How is rights being defined?
You disagree with the first premise?
How is rights being defined? How is rights being defined?
Yeah, the fact that you have obligations to, not an agent, but you have an obligation to the object.
Yeah, you can have obligations to specific objects by virtue of relations of properties they have. Like, for example...
Okay, so you don't disagree with my original syllogism.
The original syllogism was saying that if we assigned a moral value, or if we assign personhood to non-agents, right, then we would also need to assign sort of obligations to non-agents. I agree, and I'm saying that I can grant that we do have obligations to non-agents, right, while they are also not people at the same time. So I don't think that having some form of moral consideration for them or having obligation towards them or towards like certain objects is like a necessary condition to be a person.
Yeah. Can you provide me of an example of an obligation that you have to an object?
I just did. Like, we have obligations not to break crutches.
And I pointed out how there was an agent involved there. Yeah.
Yes.
Just remove the agent, just leave the object.
Yeah, that's also just removing a property from the object. It's like saying, oh well, I wouldn't value. I don't think say for example, fetuses without a feature like ours are valuable. You're removing a property that the object has.
What property does the object have? Wait, the object has the property of what? A relationship to
yes, the relationship that it has with with the agent. If it does not have that relationship, then it's no longer valuable.
I agree. So the agent is a necessary condition for there to be some type of
that's fine. You're saying that we don't have an obligation towards the object, but I can only agree with that insofar as it doesn't have certain sort of properties, and it can have these properties while also still being a non-agent, and it would still be valuable. Or it would still not be a person.
Do you see how when I originally said we're having a semantic, because you see how functionally speaking, your position and my position ends up declaring all the same types of behaviors, moral or immoral. It's just that I will explain the reason by indexing the agent. You also explain the reason by indexing the agent. You just also add this tracing condition of some relation.
Yeah, it has
literally adds
it's just
no additional value.
It's quite obvious. Like, okay, so X thing is only valuable if and only if it has this specific property, and this also is just, or like X is only worth more consideration, or X only we have like obligation towards it if and only if it has these sorts of properties, and then these sort of properties are also true for non-agents, right? And the fact that it's true for non-agents is just that there's some form of relation which they have, or property which they have, which is morally valuable, which is also true for like actual people. So again, I do think we do have an obligation towards the subject, in the sense that I am obligated, and I don't think you disagree with this statement, that I am obligated to not break these crutches. And that is a direct admission that there is an obligation we have which is tied towards these sort of inanimate objects. So
look, do you agree with me that if the relationship did not exist to an agent, I would not have an obligation to the inanimate
object? Yes, if you remove the property remove the property,
then we don't have a disagreement. You all you're doing is you're adding unnecessary fluff on top of my position. I don't even have to appeal to relations. I can just say I have obligations to the agent and the property of the agent.
It isn't.
And just saying.
Well, okay, maybe it's a property of the agent insofar as you can say that this agent has these crutches, but it's also a property of the crutches to aid this specific agent, right? So I have a moral obligation to not disrupt this object from actually possessing this property, right? Insofar as this property benefits an agent. So again, like you saying that, okay, well, if we were to say assign personhood to things which were non-agents, would also mean we have obligations towards them. It's like, well, we obviously do have obligations towards them. So arguing that personhood can only be assigned to things with sentience for that reason, or with agency for that reason, is just confused. But we can just move on to the functionalist stuff that you have, or the sorts of functions you think that need to be actualized.
No. We can't move on from this point because I need to hammer it into you, right? Look, do you agree with me that in the absence of the agent, you cannot have an obligation to the object?
Yes.
In the absence of the object, you still have an obligation to the agent.
You would have different obligations. But
So obligations are contingent on an agent, but not contingent on the object.
yes, that's fine.
Okay. Now we can move on.
That was never the disagreement. The point was that you can value or you can have obligations towards non-agents, right? Insofar as they have these specific properties. I gave you the example with the fetus. We have obligations to you can say we have obligations towards fetuses, right? Insofar as it has these specific properties. And in the same sense, that's also true for inanimate objects, right? And in that sort of context, the sort of obligations, maybe they would be brought about by different things or different conditions. But that doesn't suddenly mean we no longer have these obligations. But like regardless, I think this just like really basic.
No, not regardless. Let me tell you why your position is just so weird to me. Because if I take what you're saying to be true, then it follows that inanimate objects can be persons.
No, because I just disagree. Look, I disagree that it's oh my god. I disagree specifically. Hold on. I disagree specifically that the sort of reason you have, right, for saying that persons need to be agents actually follows. Maybe I can agree that persons can be or can only be agents, but I disagree that they are only agents for that reason.
Okay. So you disagree that persons are agents. So you disagree with the fact that if I define a person as a rights bearer and I make the observation that only agents are rights bearers, you disagree with that.
I disagree. Look, I disagree with you saying that it is a necessary, actually, I disagree with you saying that it's a sufficient condition for you to be a person, right? For you to just have these specific sorts of obligations. So anything we have obligations to is a person. I disagree that that's a sufficient condition. Maybe it can be like a necessary one. I think like all persons, we have obligations towards them, but I don't think it's sufficient. So the sort of argument you're making would conclude that having rights is sufficient for personhood, which I disagree with.
But you agreed with my definition. A person is a moral participant. A moral participant is a right bearer. Yeah. So are you walking back on?
I can agree that all persons. Look, I can agree that all persons are rights bearers. I can disagree with the fact that if you are a rights bearer, you are necessarily a person. So I can agree it's a necessary
universal instantiation, Shinra.
Okay, hold on. I don't think like you're tracking. So I can agree that it is a necessary condition for you to be a person. You must be a rights bearer. But I disagree that all people, or like for all things which have rights, right, are actually people. You understand?
I do. I understand. I would hope you said that, right? Because I don't think that rocks are people.
Yeah. Okay. So when the sort of argument you're making, or at least from what I understand of the syllogism, it concludes that being a rights bearer, us having obligations towards you, is a sufficient condition.
Being a rights bearer is a sufficient condition. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and that's the part that I disagree with for the reasons I already stated.
So you disagree with premise one. If personhood applies to non-agents, then we extend rights to inanimate objects. Do you disagree with this premise?
Repeat that. If personhood applies to non-agents.
If personhood applies to non-agents, then we extend rights to inanimate objects, or just non-agent inanimate objects.
Yeah, I disagree with that for like multiple reasons. Because one, it's just it's too broad in its scope. So saying that we assign it to like inanimate objects is too broad, because trivially not all inanimate objects have the same sort of properties. Which is why I started off with telling you that like certain sorts of inanimate objects have different relations and different properties than others, which we may assign more value to and rights to, while they also still are not people.
Look, I understand all the words you're saying. My problem is that you accepted my definition of personhood. A personhood is a right bearer. Right? But you're still rejecting
accepting it as a necessary condition.
So do you reject okay. No, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you that definition as a biconditional. Only rights bearers are people, and only people can be rights bearers.
Yeah, okay, I disagree with that.
Why?
For the reasons I just gave you. Like we've
what was the
just
reason?
spoken about this. Like, okay, so I think that things can have specific sorts of properties, right, which make us have obligations towards them, right? And due to these sorts of obligations, and if we are like
In
saying
the
obligations,
absence,
that
in the
it
absence of an
doesn't
agent,
matter. Look, it doesn't matter about the involvement of people, because what matters is whether or not they have the property.
no,
It's
you have to remove people from the equation in
why?
order to break the biconditional.
No,
Because
no, I
you're trying
don't.
to say that my. Okay, give me an example of something that is a rights bearer that is not that is no like that the wrongness of the reason why I can't do something to it like completely circumvents like an agent.
I don't think things can be wrong independent of agents. Like I'm not a realist, so like I don't. There's no motivating reason for realism. So if you're asking me whether or not something is wrong independent of all agents,
That's
obviously if I had no mental states towards thinking it's wrong, it wouldn't be wrong. And I hope you aren't a realist either. So like I don't know why this point is even being made. But if you're asking me like give me an inanimate object which what's it called, which has rights independent of any relation that it has with sentient entities, right? Then obviously I just give the case of fetuses because I'm pro-life. But also I don't think that I need to give you one in the first place.
Okay, so a fetus, right, actually can be interpreted to have my persistence condition and be a person.
Why are okay?
Because it does
What
have-
is an agent?
An agent is something that has the kind of faculty that leads to intentional action.
And the faculties are what are these faculties? And when you say leading to, what does that mean?
Sorry, you cut out. Could you repeat what
Yeah,
you
so
said?
when you say faculties and leading to, what does that mean? Like if you say like X leads to Y, what are you talking about there?
Well, I'm talking about a causal relationship, and the faculty is the character that I explained in our first debate. Do you want to just get back into
So
that?
there's a causal relation, sure, and does it need to be like sufficient, or like is it just necessary?
The causal relation.
No, does the
Is both
faculties
necess-
does the faculties that it has, are they necessary or are they sufficient? So do they need to be sufficient for actually to like gaining sentience, for example, or do they just need to be necessary?
No, well, my position has nothing to do with sentience, really. Well, it might be, but I'm not arguing about sentience. And you're asking whether the character is necessary for you to be a person? Is that the question?
No, I'm asking you. Okay, if you say that fetuses are the semantics are agents, and to be clear, what is an agent?
An agent is something that acts with intentionality.
Yes.
Intentional
Okay,
states.
and something that and when you say act, are you talking about in the present tense?
It doesn't have to be in the present tense because there's a causal continuity there.
What does that mean?
That means that if a fetus has like some basal set of dispositions that allow it to have some state of intentionality at T2, for example, it has these sets of dispositions at T1.
I'm
then that
unclear
already
on what
leads some-
dispositions even are in the first place. So
Dispositions are like a set of characteristics that lead to a reaction when the right like external factors are
wait,
presented.
okay, sorry. Repeat that. I won't write that down. So a disposition is
Yeah, a disposition is like a I haven't had to define this in a long time. But dispositions are like a set of features that lead to some specific output when some external set of inputs are presented.
when some external sorts of inputs are presented. And hold on. So I just want to know how broad is this? So when you say like for example they lead to some specific when you say they lead to some specific output, what are you talking about there? Like are you saying that there's some causal relationship? Like would you say that for example, I don't know, humans have some like disposition to turn into ice and freeze like on the spot, given that the sort of external conditions around them like rapidly change depending on the possible world? Like how broad of a scope are you talking about when you say something has a disposition?
Yeah. What you just said totally fits my definition of disposition. Yeah.
So okay, hold on. So if there is some possible world where humans can just flash freeze given like given the environment around them changes, so we do have a disposition to do that.
Yeah.
Okay,
If
well,
if you
then
end up in those specific conditions, you have a disposition.
disposition then just seems like it just seems too like broad to even be relevant. Like obviously by that those sorts of semantics, like anything literally has a disposition towards achieving sentience, because if we put it in some logically possible world where the physical laws states that anything which exists and takes up space will immediately turn into a sentient entity, then anything within this world has a disposition to be sentient, right?
Just to be clear, which modality are you speaking of when you say possible
Logical.
world? Possible worlds is metaphysical modality. If you wanna try that again?
I'm talking about a logically possible world, so no. Unless you think that, and when you say like metaphysical modality, I'm also unclear what you're even talking about when you evoke that term.
Yeah, logical modality talks about contradictions in terms, and metaphysical modality talks about like keeping some set of metaphysical commitments static when you talk about what is and isn't possible.
Yes, so, okay.
Which modality?
I don't think it's impossible in either of those lights. There's no motivation
you don't think what is impossible?
I don't think saying that, for example, a rock can turn into a human being, or a rock can develop sentience, is metaphysically impossible or logically impossible. But I'm specifically talking about logical modality. Like, so if you say something like X has a disposition, if and only if it can cause Y, are you talking about like logical modality or metaphysical?
If you're talking about what something can or cannot do in some set of metaphysical commitments, that is a metaphysical modality. Logical modality only talks about contradictions in terms, whether your words create contradictions based on their definitions.
I did, Mercury, but repeat what you said.
I said metaphysical modality talks about whether or not something is possible or impossible based on some set of metaphysical commitments being held constant.
Right? I know.
And so... Okay.
Yes, so I already told you this.
There's some possible world where a rock is sentient.
Yes, right? I don't know if I cut out like before or I'm cut out now, but I'm going to repeat it again. I don't think there's any motivating reason for it to be impossible in either modality. But I'm specifically talking about a logical modality, because you said that for something to have a specific disposition, there needs to be some causal relationship given some externals, given some like internal and external conditions, right? And when you say external conditions, I assume you mean any logically possible set of external conditions, right? And if it isn't that, then it's unclear what you mean when you say external conditions or how broad the scope is, which is why I asked you and you didn't tell me.
Yeah, but can you explain to me why the scope matters?
Because under your view, look,
is understood to be...
Yes, okay. The reason why it matters is because if you do not actually make the scope precise enough, then anything has a disposition to be sentient, making everything which exists an agent. Meaning now everything is a person.
Oh, no. That's not what I'm saying, right? Because I didn't define agent as just having some type of disposition. I defined agent as something that has specifically the type of thing that leads to actions with intentionality.
Wait, repeat what you said, sorry?
An agent is something that acts with intentionality.
Yes, okay, and you say, and when you say features that are needed, and when you say needed, what's the modality there?
I only operate out of metaphysical modality.
Why is it metaphysically impossible for a rock to have why is it metaphysically impossible for rocks to have all the features which are needed to turn into people, or to have or to be an agent? Sorry.
Yeah, I guess the contradiction would be that all agents are animated. Rocks are not animated.
Why are all wait, hold on. Why are all agents animated? What's the argument for that?
Because to act with intentionality presupposes some form of animation.
And when you say okay, hold on. When you say animated there, what does that mean?
It means to exert some type of cause and effect.
You don't think you can cause things? Oh my god. You don't think like...
Yeah, I don't think I don't think a static rock has causal power on its own.
Oh my god.
Do you?
I think rocks can cause things, yes.
Oh, okay. Rocks can cause things.
Yes.
This got really interesting.
Yes, I think rocks have causal power, yes. But yeah, I'm unsure how this specifically...
No, let's not pivot away. Let's talk about rocks causing things, Shinra. Go on.
Wait, you disagree that rocks can cause things?
Yeah, I disagree that rocks have any type of causal power. Yeah.
Okay, so hold on. If I'm like walking down the street and I trip over a rock and I fall and break my head, and then somebody asks me, what's the cause of death? What's the answer there?
You tripping.
No. No.
What do you mean?
What's the answer there? Just what's the answer there?
You tripped. You tripped.
Yeah, obviously, look, obviously, like, oh my god. Obviously, you can say that the answer would be me tripping, but what is the specific thing which caused me to trip?
The rock has no volition.
Okay, hold on. If the rock was not, hold on. I just want to know, if the rock was not present, would I have fallen? Would I have tripped in those same circumstances? It's a yes or no.
If gravity didn't exist, you wouldn't have tripped.
It's a yes or no. It's a yes or no. Also, yes, I do think. Wait, hold on. Yes, I do think that, like, in some sense, that all of these things are partial causes of the main conclusion of me falling and breaking my head. So yes.
So do you understand the distinction between direct and indirect causation? Like,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you were speaking of causal power.
I wouldn't win the race.
It doesn't matter because you were speaking of causal power.
Gravity exists. This is genius works.
No, it doesn't matter. You were speaking of causal power. I don't know, like, under what sort of semantics. Where if I say something has causal power, I'm only talking about in the direct sense. When is that? Where is that in the philosophy books?
Well, clearly there's several types of, like, understanding of causation, right? If you're going to operate out of, like, some counterfactual one, which it seems like that's what you're doing, then gravity caused me to win the race.
Yes, gravity did. Yes, gravity did. Wait, hold on. The way you're phrasing it implies that gravity is the sufficient condition for you to win the race, which is obviously not true. But gravity definitely is a necessary condition for you to win the race in the fashion that you did. So yes, gravity did play in a partial cause in you actually achieving the race. It's the same way how I can say, for example, I don't know, me being, or like Mercury having big bones, and therefore gravity affecting him more in comparison to the average person is a partial reason for him winning the sumo wrestling like match. Like, obviously, yes, gravity plays a partial cause in that, right? It isn't like it isn't sufficient on its own, but it is necessary, and it does have causal power over the sort of events that happen.
Yeah, but honestly speaking, like, pragmatically, the outcome, right? Because, like, that would be like saying, look, there's a kid starving in Africa right now. I'm causing him to die.
Yes, because the way you're phrasing, oh my god, the way you're phrasing it implies that you are the sufficient condition, right? And it's like
you're just trying to.
Yes, because that's typically what people mean. That's typically what people mean.
When people talk about cause and effect,
hold on. If I'm talking in a regular context and I'm saying, oh yeah, well, I caused this guy to fail his test, what I mean there is, if I did not take this sort of set of actions, right, then he would not have failed his test. So I am sufficient for him failing his test. If I say I caused some child in Africa to starve, right, you'd have to be the case that if I did not, I don't know, do whatever I did, then he would not have starved. Right, and obviously that isn't true.
No, the problem is you're ignoring omissions, right? You're only talking about positive actions, but there's also failures to act. So, for example, if a mother does not eat and her fetus dies, she did something wrong through a failure to act. So, yes, by your definition, I am killing kids in Africa every second of the day in my failure to act.
Okay, hold on.
Is that where this?
Hold on. In one of these situations, right? Also, there's a few things. So, I don't think that whenever you say that I'm causing these kids to die, in the context you're talking about, that you are the sufficient condition to do it, right? Because obviously, it is the case that they could have they could have not died. Right, while you also fail to act, there is no contradiction in that. So again, since there's no contradiction in that, and we're analyzing it. Wait, hold on. I don't know what other okay, bro. Like, I'm talking. Look, there's no contradiction in the logical sense, but it's irrelevant. Look, it's irrelevant. Can I finish my sentence now? So look, it's obviously I'm pretty sure you would grant this too, that it's not impossible for you to have not acted and also these kids in Africa do not die, right? So if that's the case, then if we're analyzing, hold on.
That the rock you tripped on wasn't there.
Yes, I don't. In fact, no. I don't even think that would be possible, right? If in identical situations, but the only distinguishing factor is that the rock is not there, right? Then no, I don't think it's possible for you to. I don't think it's possible for you to
What's the contradiction?
The contradiction is just that they are identical in every single property, except for the one which directly influences or causes you to trip.
Do you think that's a contradiction?
They are identical in all cases in you're trying to posit that one of them has causal power in this specific sense and the other one doesn't? Or what? Do you want me to write it out formally for you?
Yeah, could you do that?
Sure.
Holy L debate, bro. Holy fucking L debate. This is fucking ass. Like, anyways, yo, like
I know we haven't even like gotten to personhood.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, but Mercury wrote it out in chat, but yeah.
Yeah, what's gonna be after this? I'm talking to Swan.
So it's just you would trip in that world by virtue of the rock, and then not P is that you would not trip in that world. So if they're identical in every single property except for the rock, and you agree with me that if the rock was not there, you would not have tripped, right? Then it's obviously it's obviously
I
true.
don't agree with you.
Okay, hold on. Sorry. I'm saying I'm just going to ask you this question. Imagine there's two possible worlds, and the only distinction is that there's a rock there, and in one of these possible worlds, somebody trips over a rock. And in the other possible world, right, this person doesn't trip because obviously there's no rock, right? And then now we removed like a rock from both of these possible worlds. Do you think that now I could say perfectly fine that in identical situations this person could still trip? It's just a yes or no. In those identical situations,
yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I think the confusion is just obvious there. I don't think we need to talk about that anymore. But
You don't think that there could be alternative causes to them tripping?
Look, then the situations will no longer be identical.
Well, why are you limiting everything to only two possible worlds?
Oh my God! Look, because I'm saying look. Because I'm saying specifically, right, that if we are in two identical situations, right, and in one of these possible worlds I remove this specific factor which has causal influence over this outcome actualizing itself, right? You trying to say that it's possible external from this factor is just extremely confusing, and I don't even think I need to explain that. I'm sure everyone who's watching this recording should be able to reason through that on their own, honestly.
Your theory of
we can just circle back because we can just circle back. Look,
theory position.
My God.
Yeah, we need to actually just rewind completely because we're like swimming in some.
We can just circle. We can circle back to the personhood stuff. Okay.
Let's talk about. All right. How about I present? Like you already know my account of identity. Let me provide you my persistence condition.
Tell me the account of identity, please.
Yeah, I take identity to be synonymous with what I call character. Character is kind of like the causal. What's the word I'm looking for? Like the source of intentionality inside of an agent. It is best understood through things like reactive attitudes, virtues, vices, things like that.
Wait, hold on. So a person is somebody who has character, right?
Okay, here. Look, a character is. We can talk about like it being a complex of dispositions and traits. These things express things like values, vices, beliefs, and
a complex of dispositions and traits.
Something that is not. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a complex that is not static. It is constantly being changed and revised every time you have new experiences. Your character changes, but the character is holistically responsible for explaining all states of intentionality and therefore all causes of every action that you take as an agent.
Well, so okay, I just want to get clear. So a character is a complex of traits. So it's just referring to a bundle of traits that any specific physical body possesses. Yes.
I don't think it's a bundle in a compositional sense. Like I don't think psychological features are composites. So when I use complex, I just mean it's a holistic thing. Like any act of intentionality that you have is going to involve multiple versions of beliefs. Multiple versions of desires, like belief-desire pairs. So that's all I mean when I say complex.
Okay, so it's just a multitude of like mental states that any specific individual has. And you agree they change over time, but for some reason that the person remains the same over time?
Absolutely, yeah.
And the person remains the same over time because the character remains the same, yes?
Yeah, because the character is... the persistence condition essentially just has to do with like
And if the character is the
Continue.
complex, I mean, I think you know where I'm going with this. If the character is just refers to any specific complex, unless there's something which persists between, like, say, this complex would say, I don't know, I have the mental state of thinking Mercury is fat, and this other complex of mental states where I can have the mental state of thinking that Mercury is actually skinny and a high NTN, right? Like, obviously, these two things are distinct in, like, terms of, say, one or two mental states that I have. So is there some form of persistence condition within these two like complexes, which makes it such that they have the same character?
I already told you that it's a unified complex. So when you say there's two complexes, that's like a straw man of my position.
Repeat what you said. Sorry, Justice in chat was saying
I told you it's unified, right? That any act that you make with intentionality is done in a holistic manner because it's going to take into consideration like all of the relevant beliefs and desires that you have towards taking that action. So when you start separating those things, I just deny that. I told you it's all just one thing.
Yeah, okay, hold on. When you say it's all just one thing, what do you mean? Do you just mean that, like, the same physical body is just bearing all of them at the same time?
Yeah, what part of what I said led you to use the word physical?
I have, because I'm trying to get clear on what you exactly are trying to argue, sir.
Yeah, it's a variant of a psychological continuity.
Yes.
I don't take that any of these things are physical.
That isn't what I'm asking you. So hold on. Imagine there's like two distinct people, and you should say that they are distinct people because they have distinct characters. Yes.
Yeah.
And what distinguishes these characters?
The fact that one person's character, which is the source of their intentionality, cannot move the body of the other person.
Okay. So the fact that one of them has like the fact that one of them does not have a relation towards the physical body. So if the person, and when you say cannot, then what's the modality?
Sorry, repeat that.
Wait, there's actually a few things. So one, when you say cannot, what's the modality? And then two, is it like, do you just disagree that it's possible for somebody to have a specific character which has no causal power over their own physical body? Because then I don't think it's a relevantly distinguishing trait.
So the first modality was metaphysical. Can you repeat your second question?
The second question was, do you not think that it's possible for somebody to have a character which has no causal power over influencing their body?
It's possible, but they would no longer be an agent, and we wouldn't be talking about personhood.
Hold on. So you don't think that? Okay, hold on. So you don't think that? Say for example, like, I don't know. Say for example, I like manipulate your brain such that your brain is unable to actually manipulate any part of your body in the slightest. That you are still an agent.
Well, I could still be an agent, but that any action that you make me take would not be an action of my own intentionality.
Yeah, obviously. I'm asking them whether or not they're an agent.
Somebody can be an agent if and only if they are capable of acting on their own states of intentionality.
Okay, hold on. So then you disagree with, say, a brain in a vat being a person?
Are you saying the brain in the vat does not like have actions of intentionality?
It cannot. Okay, when you say actions, I'm specifically talking in the physical sense, because you brought up how it's unable to control somebody else's body.
Oh yeah.
So I'm asking you whether or not being able
trivial.
to control a physical body is necessary for you to be a person.
I mean, the body doesn't have to be physical. Idealism could be true in my position still.
Ah, man. I think you know what I mean. Okay, so they need to be able to control a body.
Yeah.
Okay, so a brain in a vat is not a person.
A brain in a vat. Are you talking about solipsism right now?
Just imagine some character in a vat, Stephen Hawking, like, I don't know.
Okay, so he's incapable of making intentional actions. I see what you're saying. Okay, but he would still be a moral participant, right? So even if he can't act on his intentionality, he still has intentional states.
That's fine. The point was, hold on. The point was that the way you're distinguishing two people having different characters was saying that one of them is incapable of controlling another person's body. But the reason why I brought this up in the first place was pointing out how being able to control a physical body is not relevant even on your own view for you to be a person. right? Or for you to have character.
But it still holds as a mechanism for distinguishing character. You just asked me how.
Hold on. Imagine there are two. Okay, sure. Imagine there are two people who are incapable of controlling their own bodies, right? How do you distinguish their character?
Whether or not an action against either one of them influences harm on one versus the other.
Wait.
It's going to be indexed to
sorry.
the
what?
Yeah. So, like, for example, an action is harmful if and only if there's some feature of your character that interprets it as harmful, right? So obviously, two independent agents.
Sorry, somebody was clowning me in chat. Sorry, what did you say?
I was just saying an action deals harm to an agent when it's indexed to some type of feature of their character that would interpret that action as harmful to them, right? If the action is not being interpreted as harmful, then obviously it's not harmful.
Okay, hold on. So I'm just asking you specifically, if they're incapable of interacting with their own physical body, right, then by virtue of that, I also doubt that they'd be able to interact with the external world in any meaningful sense, right? So if you say any action you do to them, which they'd be able to interpret as harmful, I doubt that they'd be able to do anything except for introspect. So when you're talking about harm and you're using harm as a method to distinguish them, then I also don't think that works either. Because I don't think they'd be able to interact with the world in any meaningful sort of extent, such that they'd be able to determine whether or not any action harms them. So then the question is... Yeah, then the question is just if they are, if neither of them are able to actually determine whether or not any action is harmful. The obvious answer, which is the one I think you're avoiding, is just that they have different mental states. And if the different mental states or two sets of characters are only distinct in terms of having different mental states, then you obviously realize the sort of flaw in your argument there, where any person has different or changing mental states. Now you can no longer account for persistence.
No. First of all, you didn't even listen to my persistence condition, so I don't know how you're making that. And I already told you I'm a functionalist. So the multiple realizability condition there means that the mental states don't matter at all. It's the function that matters. The function specifically here being actions on intentionality or the interpretation of incoming actions, right? It all has to do with function. So you just gave me a reductio to the archaic standard version of psychological.
No. Okay, look. What I was asking you, and I don't know if you just aren't listening, but what I was asking you is how you distinguish two characters. How do you justify that they're distinct? First you said that they aren't capable of interacting with their own physical body. Then we stipulated that neither of them are capable of that. Then you said that one is incapable of harming another in any meaningful sense, or capable of doing anything which would be interpreted as harm. I told you that the sort of harms you'd be able to do to them, neither would be able to register it because they can't interact with their physical body. Now what I'm asking for is a distinction. Now if the distinction between those, if they are not distinct, right, then obviously I hope you see the reductio there. They're two characters.
It's not a reductio.
Yes, it would be. It would just be the case that
you did is you created two objects rather than people. So we're not talking about personal.
Hold on. So you don't think
my original definition of person?
Wait, hold on. So sorry, you don't think brains in effect, and I just want to get clear, right? Because this was the initial question that I asked you. Is a yes or no, whether or not brains in effect are people.
Okay, and you're stipulating that the brain in the vat has nothing to act with intentionality on, and has no reactive attitude to the external world.
No, it is just capable. It is just capable of high level introspection. It can imagine things. It can dream. Right? It can do all of that. It's just incapable of interacting with the external world in any meaningful sense. Do you think that's not a person?
That's not a moral participant.
Oh, well, I think that's just obviously absurd. I don't know why anyone would grant that somebody who's just incapable of interacting with the external world is just no longer a person. I think typically all that's needed for personhood under most views is just that they have some form of psychological profile, right? And under your view, you just disregard people. You disregard brains in their vats.
What you gave me is a contradiction in and of itself. How can you retrospect if you have no content to retrospect on?
Huh?
How can something be a brain in a vat and have no content to retrospect on? You're saying they're dreaming, right?
Yes.
Dreams require some type of basal composite conditions. You can't dream about something that you don't have any composites to construct the dream out. So if you're saying
when you say composites to construct the dream out of, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about if you're going to dream about a pair of scissors and you've never seen scissors or even have a concept of what scissors are, I take that to be an impossibility.
So what's the and when you say impossibility, you are also still talking about the metaphysical sense, because you've still not once actually demonstrated to me why any of the claims you've said are impossible metaphysically are actually metaphysically impossible. But when in this context, when you say it's impossible metaphysically,
you want me to go through?
I mean, we can talk about this one now. When you say it's impossible metaphysically, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about that whatever constitutes some type of like mental content that you have comes out of some, like, I don't believe metaphysically on my worldview that you can have any source of information that doesn't come externally.
Okay, why? And can is obviously in the metaphysical sense, so why is it metaphysically impossible?
Yeah, specifically because, like, if we talk about knowledge, right, and we talk about kind of like inductive and deductive knowledge. So if I say inductive knowledge is the process of deriving generalizations from perceived instances, and then the process of deduction is applying generalizations to new instances, obviously you cannot create any new constructions unless you have some basal set of generalizations. So prior to some type of interaction with the external world, there are no contents on which to build.
I wasn't talking. Wait, hold on. I just want to know. There's a few things. So one, do you think those are the only two methods in which you can like gain knowledge? For one, that's just one, and then two, the obvious question is just whether like it just kicks the count down already even further on why that is metaphysically impossible. But go on.
No, I explained to you why it's impossible. What was unclear? There is no operating.
No, okay, please repeat back to the VC how you define metaphysical impossibility, because you said by your own semantics of metaphysical impossibility specifically, well, you would need to like almost go, it's impossible by virtue of the sort of commitments we have about metaphysics. And now I just want to know what sort of commitments, right, we'd be violating if we were to say that like that sort of claim was possible, for one. And then two, it's just whether or not those are the only two methods to gain knowledge.
Yeah. Order!
Like somebody
You're going to tell me to shut up.
The Jews got the Shinra. The Jews got the Shinra. The Jews got the Shinra.
Where did he go?
Is it the Jews got the Shinra?
You disappeared for a while.
Are you okay?
He's back. I heard him.
So dead.
Yo, there's no way I just said all of that.
Oh, thank God. We almost lost you.
Bro, his Jamaican accent got him.
Okay, hold on, sorry.
Shut the fuck up.
Did I like lag out crazy or?
Yeah, you lagged, bro.
Nah,
Okay.
you went up
bro.
this shit on your
Shut up, Zed, man. Oh my god, Zed, bro, shut up.
Yeah,
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, there's a few-
Let me and Shinra keep going, because if my daughter wakes up, I gotta dip
Yeah,
out.
so
Shinra,
one-
I think you were asking me to define metaphysical.
Stay away from that femboy hat.
okay. But one, you said, the sort of definition you gave for metaphysical impossibility was what?
Metaphysical impossibility is that something is not possible given that some set of metaphysical commitments are held constant.
And what are these metaphysical commitments which are like which are impeding me from saying that it's possible for somebody to know something without interacting with the external world?
Because knowledge is the relationship between a proposition and some type of perception.
What?
Like a...
That question
Yeah.
banks. That's just a question bank.
What do you mean it's okay? Well, it can be a question bag if I'm operating under my metaphysical commitments.
No. It's look, because what's in question now is whether or not you're capable. Is whether or not you're capable of being able to know things without actually interacting with the external world. Then you just repeat back to me that knowledge is just this sort of relation that we have between propositions and perceptions, which obviously require like interaction with the external world, which is already in question.
Well, no, because like an idealist defines perception without an existence of an external world. Right.
Okay, what is the sort of semantics you have on perception then?
Perception is just kind of like a registering of something that is not your own, like mental concoction.
What? So hold on, sorry. You don't think we can know things? Hold on, sorry. You don't think we can know things and make true propositions about things which are only our mental concoctions?
No, you can make true propositions on things that are your mental concoctions, but all of your mental concoctions will reduce down to some type of initial perception.
Okay, and what is this? Okay, sorry. So to perceive something specifically, I just want to get clear. You mean that it needs to be something which is not your own mental creation, And all mental creations are born from interactions with the external world?
They're reducible. They're not all.
Oh,
mental creations are
reducible,
born.
sorry. And reducibility means what's there?
It means as you can do some type of tracing condition where you arrive to some original perception.
Okay, so they're causally reducible. What's the argument for that?
That's just my definition of knowledge.
So it's just trivial then. Like, okay, yes, I agree that under your definition of knowledge, right? That was under your definition of knowledge. That yes, it is the case that it's impossible for us to know anything without interacting with the external world. That's just trivial. Like, obviously, that's why I said that it's literally, it's either like you question begging or just you saying nothing that is actually substantive there, right? Because if it's just an analytic claim, then nobody disagrees with that. Like, I could just say, okay, well, we have small
Well,
edge.
if you don't disagree with that.
Yeah. So and I could just say, okay, well, we have small edge. I don't know of specific sort of facts, and because we have small edge about these facts, then we do not need the external world for them, right? So we. Again, like the sort of argument you're making is literally just entirely meaningless, yeah.
Yeah, but my argument is like supported abductively, empirically, pragmatically.
None of the arguments you've made have would lend any sort of credence towards the fact that for us to know things at all, we need to interact with the external world. Maybe you can say that that's one of the main ways that we can come to know things. How do you think we come to know, like, say propositions like 1 + 1 = 2 is true? I just want to know. Unless you deny that those sorts of claims can be true.
No, I think those claims are true, but I think 1 + 1 is true just like conventionally, like language. I don't think 1 + 1 is true as an extension to model something.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. I just want to know specifically. So when you say it's a convention of language, do you just mean it's true by how we define it?
Yeah.
And wait, sorry. And you just agreed that for us to know things. Well, hold on, sorry. Maybe I'm mistracking, but did you not just say previously in the conversation that for us to know things, it needs to be causally reducible to some fact which is not our own mental concoction? I'm confused. Am I lost?
Well, 1 + 1 is true is a description of what we do to describe things in reality. It just is not something that exists in reality, so it's still reducible to other perception.
Wait, repeat that?
Things like mathematics are just descriptions. Things like mathematics, laws of logic, things like that are descriptions that we derive from perceptions of reality, but they are not features of reality. So they're still reducible.
So okay, and I want to know. Okay, hold on. So do you think that I just want to know. Do you think that it is true that murder is wrong?
Do I think it is true that murder is wrong?
Yeah.
It can be.
Huh?
Yeah.
Define murder for me.
An unjustified taking of a life.
Okay. So do you think that there are some unjustified takings of life that are morally justified?
Well, I think that you can have what you interpret to be unjustified taking of life.
That's no. That's not what I asked you, buddy.
What'd you ask me?
I asked you whether or not it is true that there are some cases in which you kill somebody without justification, which are morally justified.
You asked me whether I think it's true that murder is wrong. You agree?
Yeah, and I asked you multiple questions, but yeah. Very stereotype.
So what it means to say that murder is wrong is true just presupposes so many things about meta ethics and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. Look, bruh.
Well, hold on. But the reason I answered the way that I answered is because it could be the fact that murder being wrong is not the type of thing that is a true or false.
Look, right. I just want to know because obviously you're a cognitivist, right? Yes.
Well,
never mind. I shouldn't have asked. We're not going to turn this into a meta ethics debate. Look, I just want to know. Right, okay, sure, let me think of an example really quickly.
Can we talk about personhood?
No, because, hold on, you just disagree, you just disagreed that whether or not we can know things which are analytically true without actually having any sort of empirical observation, which is why, for some very confused reason, you told me,
Shinra,
that there are some murders which are not, there are some murders which are morally justified.
Abundantly clear. I take it that analytical truths supervene on synthetic truths. I think that there's no such thing as a proposition that is immune from revision if we have some type of interaction with the world that renders that previous proposition false. So any definition, right? If it just so happens that suddenly people are using the word bachelor to refer to married men for like a generation, and then the word bachelor now means married men, well, then it followed that it was not analytically true that bachelor was an unmarried man.
Because you're using, you have a different, look, okay, hold on. You can have different meanings of words depending on how the time changes. That's completely fine. But that has nothing to do with the topic at hand. Like if I say, for example, that a bachelor is an unmarried man, it's true. Hold on, it's true. And that's just, and that's just true by virtue of how I define it. What's the sort of disagree, like, I'm confused on how specifically that supervenes on the sort of like synthetic facts which exist.
Which, give me the example you want me to talk about.
Bachelor is an unmarried man. Also, why did he...
Because...
Sorry,
what are you
go ahead.
Because definitions are a conventional thing, right? They could be understood as like preserving meaning, for example, and things like that. But meanings are not static. Truth is something that is static, and so they supervene on something synthetic because they depend on the current use of the word.
Yes. Well, I think no. I don't think definitions depend on how people use them in terms of how they speak to other people. I think they just depend on how whatever agents mean whenever they use the term, or whatever they are talking about the term. I don't think it needs to depend. I don't think it needs to depend on any sort of external interaction with people. Do you think? I just want to get clear. Do you think like a mind, like a brain in a vat, because that was the initial case that we were talking about, a brain in a vat could have some specific semantics on any specific terms, then say a proposition is true by virtue of by virtue of how they've defined those specific terms? Did I lag out again?
Can you repeat that? Like I can't tell if you started, but it just
no, I'm lagging out.
But you understand my criticism about analytic truths being subject to revision.
I think you just be using a different. Right? I think you just be using like different sorts of like. I mean, I think you'd be using the same word, right? It's like, but I don't think you'd be using the same term in the sense that I don't think the sort of meaning you have is the same. Nah.
Right, but the purpose of words is to preserve meanings.
That's fine. That's right? fine. I'm telling you. I'm telling you that I think the sort of I'm telling you the sort of meanings that are assigned with the words. Maybe they can. Okay, I hate this kid. Maybe they can change, but that has nothing to do with the argument at hand here.
I know you're like we're so far off from the original argument.
Because you were disagreeing that brains and vats can have knowledge, which for someone, which still you like. Okay, the metaphysical commitment was how you define knowledge, which is entirely proprietary. Like I don't think anyone else uses the word like that, but fairs, bro. Like
you can read Leonard Peikoff's Axioms of Induction. That's where I got that definition of knowledge. I can give you like a couple of other philosophers.
Michael Humer and Leonard
the fact that
used
knowledge,
the term that way. Yeah,
the fact that knowledge builds off of induction is actually a pretty standard position in philosophy.
That wasn't the argument, but yeah, that's fine. But specifically, what I was asking for, and the initial reason why we went down this rabbit hole in the first place, was whether or not you can establish a set of persistence conditions for any character.
Yeah, you never even asked me for my persistence condition.
I did.
don't even understand what your reductionism target.
I did.
Okay, are you ready for it?
Yeah. What is this persistence condition for any character across time? Yes.
Yeah, so remember, a character is a functional state, right? So my persistence condition...
That's not how you define character a few seconds ago, no.
Well, it's obviously functional if it leads into states of intentionality.
You said a character was a complex of mental states, right, and some other thing.
Yeah, that serves to explain, like, people's intentionality and things like that.
Am I, lagging out for anyone else?
No, you're lagging pretty bad. Can you hear me though when I talk?
Give me a second. Wi-Fi. Oh, am I not lagging for anyone else? Or?
You're not lagging right now.
No, you're clear.
Okay, yeah. But Jesus Christ. But you define character as a complex of mental states. So I asked, what is the persistence condition for those mental states? Oh no, for that complex, sorry, or character.
Yeah, it's a Functional continuity.
A functional continuity, and what does that mean? You just mean that it's instantiating the same sort of function over time?
Well, the function of the character is causal in nature, right? Causation, specifically speaking about causing acts of intentionality. And the functional continuity is essentially all of the roles that it serves in its own self-revision, for example, and instantiating the volitional actions of the agent. And this not only includes the states of intentionality themselves, but any consequences of those states, if those consequences feed back to further revision of the character. So basically, if the cause cannot be avoided in explaining why the character is the way that it is, then that is part of that functional continuity.
Am I the only person who can't hear VC, or?
Yeah, it's only you. Everyone else can hear.
Give me a second.
Say bye. Why? Tell him that it's human nature.
Yeah, okay. But anyways, so sorry, repeat what you said?
I said hold on a second. I said the persistence condition is functional continuity, and I define functional continuity as the continued action of the character, which guides the intentional states, and it includes all the states of intentionality and states of revision that the character does on itself, as well as the consequences of the actions from the intentionality, if those actions also further feedback into revising the character.
We can talk about like a bit of that. So you said all of the states, so all of the intentional states, and by intentional states you mean what?
An intentional state is just a belief desire pair that leads to
so for you to for it to persist, it needs to have all of the same intentional states, and what else?
It doesn't need to. Where did you hear that it needs to have all?
Yeah, that's because that's what I'm hearing. Maybe I'm like lagging out and not hearing you properly, because it'd be better if you just wrote it down. Like, what is the persistence condition? Just write it down in chat.
Okay, hold on. It's gonna take me a second to type it out.
I think you should mute yourself, buddy.
Alright, 1 second, I'm typing it.
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry.
No service. Yeah, you have enough Wi-Fi to send a picture.
Well, I sent it from my phone, so.
No.
So, is there a debate going on, or are we just goofing off?
Apparently,
A little bit of both, you know.
Who does the guy think he is? Is there a debate going on? Well, you guys just goofing off. Who do you think you are, bro? Like, as the leader of the leaders, bro, I want to just say quickly, I think Shinra's winning this debate handily, and
please shut up.
Please shut up, please.
We're chilling my friend, bro. Yo, BB.
I put it in the chat. Let me know if you can see it.
What's up, man?
In the side chat.
Whatever the chat for this.
Yo, you unironically cannot prove that person is me. Wallahi, you cannot prove that person is me. Unironically. Anyway, this hard guy's a bastard, bro. Persistence condition is functional continuity. Functional continuity. Continue causal functionality. Only states include states of intentionality, but the consequences of those actions caused by those states of intentionality. That includes states of intentionality. And sorry, I just want to know, like, is the sort of threshold on states of intentionality, is the sort of threshold for like a state of intentionality here, like, do you have a threshold on it? Like, it doesn't need to be all of them. Like, how many states of intentionality there are like necessary for necessary for you to have like for you to have a persistent character?
Well, I already told you that it's not compositional, it's functional. So I don't know why you're trying to enumerate.
Because you said it includes states of intentionality. So I was asking specifically, when you're saying it includes states of intentionality, like, I don't know, imagine like I split your brain and I brain wipe you. Do you think like, what's it called? You still have like, or you still have a persistent character there?
If you no, why would that meet my definition?
Okay, so if you have no mental states or if you have no intentional states, you do not persist. But if I like say for example, I brain wiped you such that now you only have the sort of memories you had like as a toddler, do you think that like, or intentional states you had as a toddler, do you think you still have the same character?
No.
Okay. If I did that, but if it was you as a 15-year-old, do you have the same character?
You understand that you're literally interfering with the continued function in all of these examples.
Hold on. So the function is, I just want to get clear. So the function is different if you have different intentional states, yes?
Look, the persistence condition is continued uninterrupted function of the character.
Yes, okay, and that was not why I asked you.
Okay, what did you ask me?
Is the function dependent on the intentional states which any agent has at any specific time?
Yes, holistically, all of them.
Okay, so it's dependent on all of the mental states that somebody has at a specific time, yes? So then if they do not have all of the same mental states, then by virtue of that, the function also is not the same. That's just like a direct concession. Like, how many times has this been? That's just another direct concession. Like, obviously, hold on. If the function is just dependent on, if the function is dependent on the intentional states that somebody has, such that if I reset your brain to the state it was in when you were a 10-year-old, now the function is different. And the only distinctive factor there is the amount of intentional states. So the function is different. The function is directly dependent on the mental states. So if you have different mental states, you're no longer the same person.
The outcome of the function is dependent on the mental states. But look, it's the same thing as the last time we had a conversation.
Do you still have the same? I'm going to literally force you to answer the question in a linear manner. Do you have the same function if I were to reset your brain such that you only had the intentional states of when you were 5 years old?
Yeah, dumbass, you interrupted my function, so no.
Okay, so you do not have the same function. Hold on. So you do not have the same function because of the fact that your intentional states are different.
No, because of the fact that you interrupted the function.
And why would I be interrupting the function if you just lost some mental states?
You just said you wiped everything, and I told you the function...
Did you not hear what I just said to you? I said, if I were to reset your brain to when you were a 5-year-old, the only difference there is that you have different intentional states. I said that 5 times.
Okay. But the function would be interrupted if you reset my brain.
What is the function?
The function is driving all the states of intentionality of the character.
Driving all of the states. Okay, so if you were to lose if you were to lose some of the states of intentionality you have, the function is no longer doing the same thing because there would be a different set, right? Because you'd lose a member within the set. Like, I don't know what about that. Like, it is hard to understand. Like, I said this in the last debate too, no? Like,
back to this compositional understanding, because I don't know if you just read reductiles and the classic version of psychological continuity.
Yeah, but we get to your version is different, bro. Your version is different, bro. We get to. Cheers.
Yeah, exactly. Because every single time I tell you that the persistence condition goes with continued function, and you're like, well, what if I change the composition?
No. Okay, look, I'm going to ask you the same question. This is like round 5 of me asking you the same question. Is the function dependent on the total amount of mental states that you have at any specific time?
It is dependent, but they don't have to be the same. It's multiple.
So okay. I never said it was the same. So if I change the amount of mental states you have, then the function is no longer the same. Since for it to be that exact function, right, it depends entirely on the set mental states you have.
Yeah, but the function doesn't have to be. The function serves the same function. What do you mean?
No. It would not serve the same function because the set is changed. The function is now actualizing a different set of intentional states, which is also why if I changed your brain to when you were a 5-year-old, you would no longer be the same person because the function is actualizing a different set of intentional states. Lord have mercy.
So what? I'm confused, Shinra. What exactly is your reductio?
Oh my God.
Make it clear.
Look. I hate this guy. I hate this bridge guy, bro. Look.
Because you're
Sorry, the reductio. Look, the reductio there. Right. Look, the reductio there is that if the function depends on the sort of mental states that you have, then if you change mental states, you change functions, and if you change functions, now there's no more persistence condition. Now literally nobody persists over time. On your view.
You understand, under functionalism, any change in composition does not necessarily change the function.
You said yourself it's dependent on your intentional state. Look, do you want to conclude? We can conclude, yeah.
My God, bro.
No.
Yo, my lad chief, let's throw hands, bro.
Who?
I'm talking to my lad chief. I'm bronze tier, so
his name's Malachi, bro.
Oh, Malachi, let's.
Oh my God, this guy's a troll. Look, but I just want to know, like, actually, no. Do you want to conclude here?
It's up to you. My daughter's still actually, no, she might be waking up soon. She's kind of
yeah.
We can do this. We can continue again because I don't even think we. I don't think you understood my persistence condition. Like,
yeah, man.
I understood it in the first debate, and I don't think you understood it in the second debate.
Maybe it's ineffable, bro.
To get into overdetermination.
Maybe it's ineffable. Who knows? Maybe it's ineffable.
Wait, so what I think you should do is like you should like make a slideshow